This is Undaunted.Life, a man's podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Forging Table. The mission of Undaunted.Life is equipping men to push back darkness with content that forges.
Sorry, I got nothing. I got no audio. There we go.
Yeah, and I had the time going.
You got to push it in.
I had the time going and everything.
The time's going. We'll keep that in.
Oh, you're just making calls. You're making calls on that. Okay, Zach Morris. We're just freezing. We're just taking a time out.
Wait. Unfreeze. Okay, go.
Where was I? What was the last thing I said?
This is Undaunted.Life, where we come
do my
to
intro.
Welcome back to the Forging Table. This is the mission of Undaunted.Life, is equipping men to push back darkness with content that forges spiritual, mental, and physical resilience. I'm Adam. This is Kyle. This is Caleb. This is Russ.
You may want to read the rest of it, because there's more there.
Oh, you'll see a group of regular guys forging.
You might want to start at the beginning of a sentence and not like a weirdo right in the middle.
At the Forging Table.
There it is.
Why was the at important?
Are you just gonna read it, or you're gonna question my copy?
At the Forging Table, you'll see a group of regular guys forging spiritual resilience by digging into God's Word, and we're welcoming all of you to come along with the journey of this. That's Adam, that's Kyle, that's Caleb, that's Russ. All right, guys, let's get into it. Genesis 43. So here's Genesis 43. Why don't we start with Genesis 43, the return to Egypt. Take it away, Russ. Let's read number 1 through 10.
All right. Now the famine was severe in the land, and when they had eaten the grain that they had brought from Egypt, their father said to them, "Go again, buy us a little food." But Judah said to him, "The man solemnly warned us, saying, 'You shall not see my face unless your brother is with you. If you will send our brother with us, we will go down and buy you food. But if you will not send him, we will not go down. For the man said to us, You shall not see my face unless your brother is with you.' Israel said, 'Why did you treat me so badly as to tell the man that you have another brother?' They replied, 'The man questioned us carefully about ourselves and our kindred, saying, Is your father still alive? Do you have another brother?' What we told him was an answer to these questions. Could we in any way know that he would say, 'Bring your brother down'? And Judah said to Israel his father, 'Send the boy with me, and I will arise and go, that we will live and not die, both we and you and all of our little ones. I will be a pledge of his safety. From my hand you shall require him. If I do not bring him back to you set him before you, then let me bear the blame forever. If we had not delayed, we would have now returned twice.'"
I think we should continue to 15. Do you agree?
I don't.
Okay, good.
So we're breaking it up. But hey, 1 through 10 was perfect, but then we're going to do 11 through 15. We're going to take a little pause here if that's okay with you.
I'll allow it this time.
Just this time. Just this once. But I got to be honest, because I have no idea the answer to this. Why was Reuben's offer rejected, but Judah's was accepted? Do we have any hints?
I had the same question.
I figured one of y'all would be smarter.
Well, Reuben, so later on in Genesis, I believe Genesis 49, Jacob, whenever he's giving them the blessings and he's talking about what each one of their families will do, he talks about Reuben. He calls him a word that means basically he is like water. He's wishy-washy. He is unstable in the mind. And I don't know, maybe that plays into this, that he's seen Reuben have some of the worst behavior but best intentions. And so with Reuben, there is this idea that Reuben may really mean it at some point, like really, really mean it. But since he slept with his father's wife at one point, and since everything else has happened, it just seems like Reuben has lost that firstborn leadership in this group. And even whenever he was trying to save Joseph from the pit, like he didn't just say, "Hey, I'm the dude, we're not doing this." He had to come up with some scheme to throw him into the pit and not to kill him. And then he was going to come back for him and all this kind of back and forth stuff. And so it really, to me, and even in that scene, you see Judah step up as the leader and get all the brothers to do what he wanted them to do. And so there is some of that plays into this, that you wonder if Judah or if Reuben just has this mentality, or that his dad has this opinion that he is just, I can't trust him. Even if I think he's telling me the truth of what he wants to do, I just don't have a lot of faith in him.
And earlier when we were speaking about Genesis 42, we had brought up was Genesis 38, where there was kind of the segue to Judah and Tamar. Chronologically, when did that happen? Well, I would argue that had to have happened before this, because at the very end of that story, Judah says Tamar is more righteous than me. And that's kind of an initial kernel of a switch to him. And so now we're seeing Judah stepping up as a leader of this group of 10 idiots that are still making bad decisions, and his father who's still showing favoritism. And now, yeah, you're right, Reuben's was not accepted, but now here's Judah stepping up as a leader. It doesn't make chronological sense in my mind for him to have had two positive things possibly, and then now he's going to go live with a Canaanite woman.
Right.
So it seems to me like it would connect the dots that that's already been done.
Yeah.
Now he's back with his brothers somehow. We don't know how, but he's back with his brothers and he's starting to lead the group.
Yeah, if he would have mentioned his sons, we could have maybe understood, because obviously by this time he's down 2 sons, only has 1, but he doesn't throw in his sons as
That's a good point.
as what's the word I'm looking for?
Payment.
Yeah, as payment for this, or
Collateral.
Yeah, he doesn't throw his sons as collateral, which maybe this does point again to the fact that he doesn't have 2 of them anymore. He may not be willing to do that, but he's willing to say, hey, I'll take the blame, which is crazy because the blame on him is actually the blame on him from the original sin.
Yeah, he's already got it.
He's already got the blame.
Yeah, you're not
he's
taking
just
anything
saying,
you don't already have.
I'll take the blame because it's already owed to me.
But just now it's out in the open, so now they know.
And it's for another brother.
I mean, Reuben's offer too is like, so if I go, one of your sons, and don't bring back the other son, then I want you to kill 2 of your grandsons. It's kind of like, what?
Yeah, all right, that
That's
seems
kind of a
fair.
ridiculous offer, you know? Like maybe a little, to your point, like not a very mature offer. You didn't
But it's
think
kind of
that
like
through.
a bit sawed off. Like there are just guys in your life that are a little bit sawed off to
Right.
where you love them, but you wouldn't trust them with a potato gun. It's just like one of those things where it's like, no, you don't basically threaten your 2 boys, right? Because I have 2 sons, and it's like, I don't know a scenario where I'm like, I swear on the lives of my 2 boys, and not just for hyperbolic effect, but I mean it. If I don't follow through on this task, you can have my boys and kill them. It's like, are you out of your mind?
Yeah.
Right.
You just disqualified yourself
Yeah.
from me thinking you can lead this party. That's a disqualifier. And we've got to give him a little bit of leniency. Again, he was one of the firstborn, not to Rachel, and he was one of the ones set up in the front of the pack, to basically, again, say, I have favorites. You're not one of them. You're somewhere in that list. But he should have been. I mean, he's the firstborn. He should have been high in that list, but he just wasn't.
One thing that I think is also interesting as we continue to see this story unravel is probably like a lot of us possibly at this table, and definitely other friends that we know, a lot of people have rough family lives. Families are broken. Families are messed up. This is a problem. That's a problem. Real issues, but probably not as bad as this one did,
Right.
relatively. So this is a broken family, severely fractured, a lot of negativity, a lot of problems, favoritism from father to the children. Like that's not good. Brothers have one brother sold into slavery, throw him down into a well. But at the end of the day, no family is too broken for God's redemption. At some point, it can still come back together. And so you can feel lost, you can feel hopeless, you can feel like my family's just too messed up. We can't come back from this. You can come back from it.
Right.
And I think it's okay as well, because a lot of people, I don't think many people know they're the crazy one. They don't know they're the crazy uncle, or that becomes their whole identity, is I'm the crazy aunt, I'm the crazy uncle, that type of thing. But in a situation like this, I think there are people that their self-awareness is so low. I mean, I think about how these brothers have operated the entire time. I think about how the apostles operated the entire time. And it's easy to float above the scriptures and be like, oh gosh, these idiots. I'm like, no. I would have been one of those idiots, faux show. I would have been a Peter level idiot. Yeah, like Peter would have been like, hey, I've never found a situation that didn't even, not my opinion, right? So tell me that's not Peter. And so, but yeah, the redemptive process is fairly substantial here. And you make a good point, because I would assume, just because of the quality of man at this table, that y'all are either seen as patriarchs in your extended family or patriarchs in waiting. And so I'm in a situation where, we've lost, over the last 4 or 5 years, we've lost some family, we've lost some very important men, some great-grandparents, grandparents. And it's like, when you see your family kind of talking to you as if, hey, you're next in line, there's no ceremony, there's no whatever, but you feel the weight transfer from your family onto your shoulders. And I love what Joby said whenever he got to early part of his ministry, whenever he decided he wanted to do vocational ministry. He said, I did not pray for God to lighten my load. I prayed for him to broaden my shoulders. And I think that we have we talked, I forget who brought it up, but I wrote a note one of my Dominion pillars is standards over goals. Goals are fine. Standards are just way better, right? So if you have a physical standard that you should be able to wake up and do the Murph any day, like of the week, you have to have, like, that's way better than a goal. My goal is to work out today. Like, no, that's stupid, right? But if you have a standard, this is just what I do. This is what Thompsons do, Smiths do, Eustaces do, Martins do. Like, this is just kind of what we do. Having a standard is so much more valuable, because imagine if these boys had had a standard of excellence in their lives. Like, how would their decision making have changed? There would have never been like the jealousy and the rage and, you know, the conniving and all those different things. And that's why that's such a big deal. When I do, I taught that to our Sunday school. I went in there, and now people are catching themselves in class. They'll say they have a goal. Wait, no. I'm going to set a new standard here, because you basically reverse engineer from the standard, right? Some people are like, hey, I want to be able to run a 5K on 30 seconds notice, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, if you haven't ran a mile in the last 10 years, well, we kind of can figure out what direction you need to go and the things that you need to do. And it seems like there weren't a whole lot of standards being upheld here, and except for apparently the inner constitution of Joseph.
Right.
I mean, my goodness, like whether God gave it to him or whether he just was blessed with this tremendous wisdom. It's just right there in front of him.
I think we sometimes forget that they didn't have the scriptures. So it's not like these brothers or even Joseph that we can say, man, Joseph just stayed in the word of God during this time. Like, the word of God at that point was Joseph stayed in the story of his grandfather and father. Like, he knew the stories, and that's how the tradition was passed on, was the oral tradition of the stories was passed on. But his commitment to stay devoted to God, even whenever he talks to his brothers and says something about, God will do this, it's just remarkable that he really planted that as the root of his life, and then it stayed there. Where you see all these other people, they know who their God is, they know who their family's God is, but in every situation, they end up just swaying to the other side.
Well, and that's one thing. So we were talking off air. We were talking about working out in the mornings, and it's like, how that completely changed my life, working out in the morning, because the ball game may not end until 10, but if you got to wake up at 5:30 to lift, it better be a Natty Championship. It better be Game 7 of the World Series, because staying up for a Cardinals-Pirates game in June is not worth going to bed at 10:30 when you're used to going to bed at 9 or 9:30. Most people are like, oh, what's the difference? Just an hour. It's a big dang difference. I can feel it when I get 7 hours of sleep versus 8 hours of sleep, because my entire job is about quick recall and saying it, boom, 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 and I feel like I'm incredibly diminished. And so when you have like a standard and you set it, you reverse engineer and figure out what you have to do. You're not going to stay up late eating Doritos and ding dongs. Like, if you got to wake up in 7 hours and like get after it. Like, the last thing you want to do is to, oop-de-doop all over your gym floor.
I'm going to disagree with you heartily here, because what happens when you go to bed? When you go to bed at 10:30 and the Thunder are up by 14 points deep into the third quarter, and then you wake up the next morning and you realize that they blew a lead with 7-point lead with 1 minute to go. What the heck was that?
So again, this is, at this point, the NBA champion has already been decided, right? This comes out like 3 months from now. Okay. So this is going to be kind of interesting, but this is what I do, because I don't have the emotional maturity to watch sports of teams that I care about whether or not they win. That's part of the reason why I love college football. I don't have a favorite team. Yeah. Like, I'll pick a team. Oh, it's Bama, LSU. I kind of like that guy on Bama. I'll root for Bama this time, right? I just don't really care ultimately. So this is what I have to do, because I can't live and die with every pitch, with every possession, with everything. I put my phone down. I put it on silent. I go to bed. I wake up, and I look and I say, oh, Cardinals won. All right, cool. Getting on with my day.
Why can't you just watch a game like a normal person?
Because I'm not a normal person. That's why. The amount of nights that I have ruined. Do you want me to bring Kelsey up here and have her give you, because baseball is 162 games plus playoffs, plus off-season, plus trades, plus acquisitions and all that. And when you're living and dying with every ball and strike call,
it's exhausting.
Right, it's exhausting, and you can't have any impact on what happens. And so I got to a point where I realized the closer I get to teams that I care about, which I don't watch the NBA really at all anymore. I think I've watched 14 minutes in the NBA total this year, just because it was on in the background and I couldn't turn it off. Just after all the COVID, George Floyd and Black Lives Matter stuff, I'm just not that interested in it. And it's just a terrible game to watch. Like, now it's just dribble drive, kick out, 3-pointer, dribble drive. If you're an all-star, you get a foul call. Like, it's just not a fun thing to watch. But when I can start feeling myself really caring about the outcome, I turn it off immediately. because I have ruined way too many nights, and I refuse to let either one of my boys see that. When I see adult males screaming because a 19-year-old kid dropped a pass, right, or missed a free throw, like, no. Like, and you're not bad at all. Like, because
Yeah.
you love Baylor and all the things. But some of the people I've seen, I'm like, my boys can never see that side.
Kyle Thompson, January 2021, 10 ways to not be a crappy man.
Yeah.
Number 7, don't let sports ruin your life.
Yeah. So what are you going to do the next time the Cardinals are in the World Series?
They've been in the World Series since I made this decision. Didn't watch
You
a single
didn't watch
game.
it?
Not a single game.
Do you want your boys to be Cardinals fans?
I do. And part of the thing is, like, I can't. I put my boys together like.
Do you watch it afterwards to just see what happened?
No.
No?
I look at the score and I live with the result, and happy, sad, moving on. I got the Bible to study. I got an interview to prep. I got boys to raise. And like, I want the boys to be into sports, but no one in my family was into sports.
Yeah.
Like, I bought a 19-inch Zenith television to have in my room so I could watch SportsCenter, because that's when SportsCenter was freaking SportsCenter. You had to watch to see if Sosa or McGuire hit a home run today. You know what I mean? But like I want my boys to be fans, but we're not going to be the family that stays up to all hours of the night either. And so a 7:05 start time, Central Time, that game's not over until 10.
Yeah.
Like, if they got to wake up at 5:30 or 6 the next morning to get to school, like, I'm not sending my kids to school for zombies. Now, if there's a no-hitter going or something like that going on, I'm staying up or waking the kid up. We're trying to make one of those core memories. I'm going to bust those kids out of school in the middle of the day to go see, an OKC Comets game, for whatever reason that's their name, the AAA team for here in Oklahoma City. But yeah, I want them to be around sports. I want them to appreciate excellence. I want them to see all that. But if dad cares about the team, nope, just can't do it.
Yeah.
So we went from the Dodgers to the Comets?
Yeah, we're the Comets now.
When did they release that?
Beginning of the
a couple
season.
months
Mickey
ago.
Mantle, I guess, was one of his nicknames.
Commerce Comet.
Yeah, Comet.
got it.
Yeah.
Comet from
Commerce
he's from Commerce,
Comet.
Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
We
it's
should have
dumb.
been. We should still
It's
be
not
the
cool.
89ers.
Well, there's 89ers.
The Red Hawks was
there
perfect.
Red
Red
Hawks.
Hawks was fine.
The Red Hawks was great.
Wasn't there another one in there before they became the Dodgers?
89ers, Red Hawks, Dodgers.
That switch happened because they
Because they went from
switched-
Houston
right.
to Texas.
Right. They
Yeah.
switched
AAA.
And
MLB
then to
teams.
LA.
No,
And
Texas
then
to Houston to LA.
I think they were running into problems because everyone hates the Dodgers.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so when you call your AAA team just the Oklahoma City
Yeah.
Dodgers,
That was
people are
terrible.
like,
I
it's
agree.
worse.
I kind of agree with that. Like, don't be the Dodgers because you're not Dodgers fans.
You want your local team to have like some pride in the name.
You should be the 89ers still.
89ers would be fine. The Red
cool.
Hawks would be fine. I
Wasn't
didn't
the
understand
89ers, isn't that who the Tulsa Drillers became?
Maybe.
So I think maybe the
might be right.
89ers became the Tulsa Drillers, which is the AA affiliate for, I think, the Dodgers as well.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So confusing.
All right. We have, anybody want to make a smooth, here, they've done transition. So you transition us back, Caleb. All the pressure's on.
Speaking of people that have name
Speaking of-
changes, we were going to get to see what Israel thinks about this.
Yes.
Oh, there we go.
Let's
Well, that
hit
was
it.
low
I was
hanging
trying to
fruit.
go with like dodging things.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, dodging responsibility.
Which hasn't he been referred to as Jacob all the way until now?
Right now
Yep.
he's being referred to as Israel.
Well, a second ago, I was reading something and it went back and forth. It was Israel, Jacob.
I don't
So-
know that there's any rhyme or reason to that.
I don't know either. I mean, I know
some
his
stuff
name
I
was
was reading
changed,
is
but-
just kind of.
Well, Caleb, 11 through 15, if you don't mind, sir.
Yep. Then their father Israel said to them, "If it must be so, then do this. Take some of the choice fruits of the land in your bags and carry a present down to the man, a little balm and a little honey, gum, myrrh, pistachio nuts, and almonds. Take double the money with you. Carry back with you the money that was returned in the mouth of your sacks. Perhaps it was an oversight. Take also your brother and arise, go again to the man. May God Almighty grant you mercy before the man, and may he send back your brother, your other brother, and Benjamin. And as for me, if I am bereaved of my children, I am bereaved."
And 15.
Oh. So the men took this present, and they took double the money with them and Benjamin. They arose and went down to Egypt and stood before Joseph.
So I'm just kind of struck by Jacob or Israel's really lack of optimism here.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, again, we know the story, he doesn't, and he's living through this, and he's talking about Sheol and his gray hairs and all this stuff, and so he's going through it, right? He's up against it, and he's thinking Benjamin's not coming back,
Right.
like, and that's his new favorite, and his original favorite's gone, so not a whole lot of optimism here,
Sounds like he's
Nope.
still grieving.
but for sure.
There's no optimism, but there's a kernel that he has relented to his fear, and he has relented to the point where, like, I got to let Benjamin go.
That's true.
So it sort of is. Maybe it's a small step, but it is an initial step into the direction that he knows he has to go.
Yeah, it definitely seems like he's mailing it in. I mean, he's got to be thinking about Joseph too. You know, I mean, he's kind of living it again.
Right.
Right. So
Which he has been for a while, continuing to think about it, and that's what's captured him, and that's what's made him feel like he can't move and he can't get rid of Benjamin because he's holding on to that thought of Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all think I don't know if I'm reaching too much here, but the idea that his blessing came from hunger, and now he is having to give something up for his own hunger. Mm-hmm. Like he got his brother's birthright through his brother coming home hungry and being like, I gotta eat whatever you want. Yeah, sure. You want my birthright? Take it.
Yeah, just
whatever.
impetuous. Yeah.
The thing that should have been most important to him. And then here we see him, say, hey, we need some more food. And they say, man, we can't go without Benjamin. He's like, absolutely not, absolutely not, absolutely not. And then he's like, man, I'm really hungry. Okay.
That's a good point.
It's kind of strange how this turns full circle for him.
Well, let's go ahead and get the rest of the narrative of Genesis 43. We will take a volunteer as tribute to read 16 through the end of the chapter.
I got it. When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to his house steward, bring the men into the house and slay an animal and make ready, for the men are to dine with me at noon. So the man did as Joseph said and brought the men to Joseph's house. Now the men were afraid, but they were brought to Joseph's house, and they said, it is because of the money that was returned in our sacks the first time that we are being brought in, that he may seek occasion against us and fall upon us, and take us for slaves for our donkeys. So they came near to Joseph's house steward and spoke to him at the entrance of the house, and said, O my lord, we indeed came down the first time to buy food. And it came about when we came to the lodging place that we opened our sacks, and behold, each man's money was in the mouth of his sack, our money in full, so we have brought it back in our hand. We have also brought down other money in our hand to buy food. We do not know who put our money in our sacks. He said, be at ease, do not be afraid. Your God and the God of your father has given you treasure in your sacks. I had your money. Then he brought Simeon out to them. Then the man brought the men into Joseph's house and gave them water, and they washed their feet, and he gave their donkey fodder. So they prepared the present for Joseph's coming at noon, for they had heard that they were to eat a meal there. When Joseph came home, they brought into the house to him the present which was in their hand, and bowed to the ground before him. Then he asked them about their welfare and said, is your old father well, of whom you spoke? Is he still alive? They said, your servant our father is well. He is still alive. They bowed down in homage. As he lifted his eyes and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son, he said, is this your youngest brother of whom you spoke to me? And he said, may God be gracious to you, my son. Joseph hurried out as he was deeply stirred over his brother, and he sought a place to weep. He entered his chamber and wept there. Then he washed his face and came out, and he controlled himself and said, serve the meal. So they served him by himself, and them by themselves, and the Egyptians who ate with them by themselves, because the Egyptians could not eat bread with the Hebrews, for that is loathsome to the Egyptians. Now they were seated before him, the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. And the men looked at one another in astonishment. He took portions to them from his own table, but Benjamin's portion was 5 times as much as any of theirs. So they feasted and drank freely with him.
I mean, my goodness. It's just, again, I never am ever going to hold myself above what I see in Scripture, because if I look back on some of the dumbest things that I've done, it's like, oh my gosh, this was like stuff out of a bad, scary movie, some of the things that I've done. But he puts them in order, and there's just no inkling of who this man is. And again, you kind of understand. 15 years, completely immersed in, I know we've said it a bunch, completely immersed in Egyptian culture. Like, I mean, what would someone have to look like? What kind of features would they have to have for you to have absolutely no recognition whatsoever?
I think there's something to point out, though, that he's immersed in it, but he is still separate from it. Like whenever this says...
Because he'll never be an actual Egyptian.
Yeah, because this says that the Egyptian wouldn't eat with him. So he had maintained some of his Hebrewship. Is that a word? I don't know.
Yeah,
Hebrewy.
sure.
Hebrewy.
How about that?
His brewness. He remained some of his brewness. Mm-hmm. But so like there is this idea that obviously he shaved whenever he came over there. He looks different, but he has maintained his identity enough to where that the Egyptians around him have not forgotten that he is a Hebrew. Mm-hmm. It's just interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's 3 tables set up here, right? I mean, he's by himself. Is he not? Joseph's by himself. His brothers are at a table, and then you got whoever else was in the room.
The Egyptians, yeah.
The Egyptians,
Yep.
Sitting at their own table. But you think too about, I mean, he was 15 years old. He's 15 years old, and then he grows up. He's speaking a different language. He's a man now. Like, I don't know why they would. I mean, the birth order thing, like you would think they would start thinking like this is weird.
Yep.
But why would they? It's basically a foreigner who looks totally different.
Think of their wave of emotions. I mean, they start off in 17. All that happened is they got brought to his house and they were immediately afraid.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately fear is over them. And then they go from fear to now the man is feeding us and he's feeding us well.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, maybe everything's going to be fine.
Right.
It reminds me somewhat of the parable of the prodigal son, except for they are all the prodigal brothers, and he is showing them the kingdom of God here in the idea that they return back to him, and he has them dine at this feast where he is raising up the youngest, the smallest of them to the highest place. I mean, it's a whole story is just poetic.
And the great part of it as you continue is he's not done testing them. More testing is coming.
Right.
So it's the same wave of emotion of fear, scared, go back to father, come back, more fear. Now we're dining and everything seems like it's going to be okay again.
Well, there's
We got
another
food.
test at the end. Like he gives Benjamin, the known favorite, five times the portion. And like the Reformation Study Bible said this, they're testing the brothers for jealousy. And it looks like they passed, right?
Yeah.
And
I actually feel like that almost would stand out more than, like, if you think of, like, if you sat down around a table with 9 other guys, you're not necessarily going to notice, or we're in a certain order, right? You're just sitting down, you're kind of in awe of the whole thing. But then they know Benjamin's their dad's favorite. How does this guy know? And he just gave them, you don't notice 5 times. Like, you might not notice like double.
2 times,
I think
yeah.
he's stirring the pot right here.
5 times is like, right? I mean, I
It's
feel like that
it's
would
like one
stand out
brother
even
gets
more.
a chicken leg and then he gets the entire freaking chicken
Yeah,
come out and it's like a rotisserie chicken, all of the whole thing.
To go back just a little bit, because we didn't talk about this, but there was a double period of time, probably more than double, because the brother at one point said, Judah said, if we would have already left, we could have returned twice. And that was still whenever his dad had let him. So from Joseph's perspective, this had to be a nightmare for him too during part of this, because he sent them out. He really wants to see this younger brother. He wants to get to the bottom of this. He sends them out, and they actually don't come back at first.
And he's holding Simeon.
Yeah,
Simeon's still
and
there.
He's like, these are the same guys that I left. These are the same guys. They'll just let Simeon rot in here, and they're just going to go and probably make up a story to their dad and not tell him the truth. Although he doesn't know what story they told him. Although he's gotten a hint because he heard them talking, but you got to think that he was so excited for this moment whenever he finally saw Benjamin to be like, yes. I mean, I was hoping that this would happen. I never would have dreamed they actually would have brought him back.
Do we know how long their journey was?
back and forth.
I think in later chapters, and as we were talking earlier about how old was Jacob, I think they do directly address that later, that he's very old and it's hard for him to make the journey
Right.
because there's a reason later on why he has to make the journey, because Joseph starts testing them again. And I think it does say it's a long, arduous journey to get there.
Because you have to think, like, he didn't just give him like a week's worth of food. You know what I mean?
Oh, right.
The first time. I mean, he gave him months probably of food, right? And they're rationing it, and they're trying to make it go as long as it can. You would think Jacob is even, like, to your point about we could have been there and back twice. Like, he may have just been waiting it out. Like, we need this famine to end. You know, we can start growing our own crops again, like all that. And then basically just saying, hey, if we ever see Simeon again, great. But if not, that's fine too.
So
I'd
it
trade
looks-
him for Benjamin, right?
Yeah, so just like a quick search, it looked like the distance would have been from the land of Canaan to Egypt, 250 to 300 miles. So this would have been a 1 to 2 week trip, right? Depending on the pace, how often they stopped, if they were on animals or something like that. So yeah, it's not a insignificant amount of time.
Yeah. So, I mean, there was obviously a lot of consternation from Jacob on, whether or not we're going to go back at all, I think. Your
Right.
thoughts?
Well, again, there's so much testing going on, which kind of goes back to something you said on a previous week, Caleb, to where it's like do we think he's trying to like stick it to him like a little bit? Like what's kind of the motivation behind this whole thing? And he is just playing his cards, and you can tell it's killing him because he's looking for places to weep. He's leaving conversations in order to go weep. But it's got to be that God's just in his ear telling him and guiding him and saying, no, just be patient. Don't say anything. We need to see if this is true repentance. Because again, people talk about races, and the part of people's problem, especially men, is we're running other people's races for them, right? And so we think about this guy that just got a promotion, or this guy that just moved and did something, or this guy that had some sort of accolade, and then you're comparing yourself to that guy. It's like, why are you comparing yourself to him? You're not running his race. That's his race. Let him run his race. You run your race. And so in this particular situation, the focus of the narrator, right, which is ultimately God, but whoever wrote this down, Moses probably, is on Joseph. Like Joseph is the main character of the story, and all these other people are kind of like they're just helping out with the whole thing. But this is for the brothers. Right? This is for Israel, the father, right? And so I think just watching his patience and seeing that, again, especially after him spending well over a decade in squalor and in injustice, like it's such an incredible example. Mm-hmm. Yep. Anything else on 43?
I mean, I was just kind of wondering too. I mean, they come back with however long that time was, 6 months or who knows, a year. They come back with all that money and more. Mm-hmm. I just was kind of like, I mean, that's a lot of responsibility I don't know why they would have thought that, why they would have done that.
Why they would have come back what they originally
Well, I know why they came back, but why would they even keep it that whole time? Like, you're in a time of famine. You would think that if someone came through Canaan with a meal, that they're willing to pay, whatever.
They probably didn't come through Canaan with a meal. I mean, like, what good does money do you if
nobody has anything?
Yeah, there's no food to buy.
Yeah. It just struck me that they came back with all that.
It would only do good for the Egyptians, because obviously they'll take the money because they're going to use it in the future because they're the only ones who have the grain. So they're going to have everybody's money at the end of this.
Yeah, when people get desperate in those times, money kind of loses its value because you're just willing to inflate prices to whatever you need anyway. So
when you even look at how the ending of the chapter goes, is like, so they're all together, right? All the brothers, even though only one of them knows it, that it's all of them, and they drank and they were merry with him. Like, you got to think at this time, how many opportunities did you have to drink and be merry, right? Especially if your father's older, if you feel this tremendous amount of guilt over, killing or selling one of your brothers into slavery, the famine, like all these different things, like they're getting a reprieve, right? And they don't even know where it's coming from. Yeah. Just some random Egyptian that they don't understand him when he speaks, and if there wasn't for this interpreter. And, this is one of those things where I hope there is like a room in heaven where you can just go in there and like, all right, I want to go to Genesis 43. I want to go to the table, and I want to know what everyone was thinking. Was there one brother that was like, this Egyptian guy, he seems rather Jewy, right? Seems rather Hebrewish. And it's just like, there's something about, I just want to know, was there ever like a crack in the facade? Like, did somebody notice? You know what I mean?
We did miss verse 34. It starts off with, he took portions to them from his own table. I don't think we've talked about that yet. That's significant. That's unique, because again, it had just said that it was detestable, or what was the word that they said? Detestable for Egyptians to eat with Hebrews, I think it was. Yep. Loathsome.
An abomination is what this ESV says.
So it was loathsome for them to eat together. So, not only did they get food, but the food came from Joseph's table, which I think what we said earlier, it seemed like Joseph was eating by himself. Like, the Egyptians weren't even with Joseph.
Right.
Joseph was like in a place of power and a different table. He's taking it from his table to his brothers. That's pretty interesting. Mm-hmm.
I will say as well, I meant to put it down. I just looked at a note. So when you mentioned the prodigal son story, Jay Reisner, who's the executive pastor of Faith Bible Church in Edmond, Oklahoma, he preaches from time to time throughout the year whenever Pastor Mark Hitchcock is not there. And he's the one that literally got that story to sink in for me, because I always was pro Big Brother. I was like, yeah, man, because I'm highly conscientious. I'm like off the charts on conscientiousness. And so it's like, yeah, the brother does all the right stuff, and then his ne'er-do-well turd of a brother, like, does all this terrible stuff, and the dad goes out there and gives him a robe and a fatted calf and the ring and all that stuff. It's like, man, screw that little brother. He should have died with the damn pigs, right? That's kind of where my mind goes. But he did a sermon probably, I don't know, a couple of years ago, where he's like, the older brother was just as lost as the younger brother. It just looked different. It just felt different. And so if you're the ne'er-do-well guy because some people know they're screw ups. Like everything they've done their entire life, they were always the screw up. They were always the kid that wasn't getting good grades, didn't make the sports teams, like all the stuff. You know you're a screw up, and you see yourself in the prodigal, and you're just so thankful that the father came out. Whereas I was harboring like ill will towards someone that doesn't exist. It's not a real story. It's just a parable that Jesus was telling. But yeah, I mean, Jay really helped me kind of understand that with his sermon, being like, no, the brother is super lost. Like he's coming at this from a place of works-based righteousness, and he's assuming the seat of judgment over his brother, which is not his seat to assume. And so I just wanted to give him a quick shout out. I can't remember the name of the sermon, but it would have been a couple of years back.
I just figured out something in addition. I've been sitting here trying to process, how did the brothers not recognize Joseph? And I think I just figured it out. Joseph must have been incredibly fat because it was from his table. So from his table, his portion, it was enough to feed all of his
like
brothers.
A Nutty Professor thing going on?
Yeah. So
right now?
he had a giant fat suit.
You think this had to be after Potiphar's wife's
After
situation?
yes, because he was attractive.
He had
attractive and
right.
formed.
Jacked ginger, we've already established.
But at this point, he's getting all the money, and so he's just eating and eating and eating. He's like, well, I mean, I've got all this food, so I might as well give it to my 9 brothers. This other brother, you can have 5 portions, and so I'll just eat my whatever's left over on this table. So he was incredibly fat, so fat that they didn't recognize him.
I'm giving like a heartfelt shout out to our pastor, and you're sitting over there like, come on, let me in here. I just got to cut in right here. All right. Hey, I figured it out.
It was good.
But I can't say you're wrong.
You never know. It could be possible.
He was a fatty McFat. Who knows?
Someone's going to listen to this because I keep talking about how good I am at casting and about coming up with these ideas. I'm going to be a writer for The Chosen is what's going to happen.
Is that what's going to happen?
They're going to ask.
So which fatty McFat is going to play Joseph? Because I'm taking Jake Gyllenhaal with abs, but apparently he turns into Brendan Fraser from The Whale.
Like we could put on a fat suit. No, Jake Gyllenhaal, he'll gain 200 pounds for a role. No problem.
No problem.
He'll put 200 pounds
he
on
can
and
eat
take
concrete and not get that big.
Yeah, you never know. Give him a chance.
Guys, I have no idea where to take this, but we are winding to a close here. This is a little bit of a quicker one, but does anybody have anything at all that could possibly top what we just heard?
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Mine is the last one.
Okay.
Russell's is more meaningful.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
It's not a complete even thought on this, but just for some application of where to take this is, again, like you said, we don't want to put ourselves in Joseph's shoes because most of the time we're not. Most of the time we're one or multiple of these other characters, whether it is Jacob, who is sowing some distrust in his family, whether it's Reuben that is being wishy-washy and not making good decisions, or whether it's Judah, who is eager and quick to make decisions, but not with the right heart and mind and the right influence. And we see in this story that the best place, like where he's trying to bring them, and the best place that they can get to is the place of acknowledgement of their pitifulness. And so they've now, through all of this circumstance, they have finally found themselves to where they are getting closer and closer to their acknowledgement of where they're truly at. And there's probably people listening that, I know the other day you were talking about you've had some guys reach out and been in really bad spots. And if you can acknowledge that you're in that spot, you may be getting ready to sit at the banquet to find out what God really had prepared to bring you back into His glory. And so, I don't know. I see us as all probably different characters of the brothers who have dealt with the guilt. They've held on to this stuff. They sometimes have people that are giving them unnatural grace that they don't understand, or that God is giving them that. And if you would just accept that, sit at the table for long enough to hear out what the plan is, or to hear out where this goes, that's where you need to be.
I don't know that, and this is a serious comment, but I don't know that your goal for the forging table is necessarily to leave something at a cliffhanger. But I will encourage anybody, maybe this is the first time you've heard this podcast, this is probably the best cliffhanger of all time on the forging table, because trust me, the wheels are about to fall off on Genesis 44. Genesis 44, the next book, it really gets intense. We're going through, I've talked about peaks and valleys, ups and downs. Right now we're at a happy moment. Genesis 44, the wheels fall off, and it's about to get really exciting. So if this is your first one, listen to Genesis 44 next, because it's going to be great.
And the first lead caption for in the ESV is Joseph tests his brothers. And so it's been test after test after test, but yes, it does get after it. And I mean, when you get to the beginning of 45, I mean, guys, we're getting towards the end of Genesis here, so we're going to be covering a lot of ground over the next several weeks. But yeah, it's just, again, this is made for TV stuff. It is absolutely criminal that this has not been a movie or a miniseries or something like that. But anything else before we close out, fellas? It was an absolute pleasure doing this with you guys, but we're going to have to leave it there. Again, guys, come back here next week where we're going to get into Genesis 44. But before we let you go, we are going to do a quick resilience boost. At Undaunted Life, our mission is equipping men to push back darkness with content that forges spiritual, mental, and physical resilience. Crossway, we've got a 5-book forging table starter set. If you want to do your own forging table with your own guys, get all these 5 books, but at a 50% discount. Also, the Logos Bible software, the most powerful and most complete Bible software on planet Earth. Make sure you use it, but use it at a discount. We have that in the show notes, and we are a donation-based ministry. Undaunted.Life/donate. Undaunted.Life/donate. If you're wondering how we can afford, tables and all the microphones and all these different things, it's because we have guys like you that are partnering with us to make sure that we can equip men to push back darkness and cultivate spiritual, mental, and physical resilience on a daily basis, and to do so around the world. So please hop on board, be a donor. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Wherever you're listening to this, please subscribe, rate, and leave us a positive 5-star review. If you want me to come speak live at your event or on your podcast, just shoot me an email to info@Undaunted.Life. That's info@Undaunted.Life. Follow us on Instagram and like us on Facebook, and check out our website for everything else, including how to donate to keep more content like this coming your way. Just go to www.Undaunted.Life. And as always, we want to thank the band Holy Name for allowing us to use their music for our content. The music on this podcast is their song Perpetua, which is off their self-titled debut album on Face Down Records. The links are in the description. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Remember, keep pushing back darkness, keep forging spiritual, mental, and physical resilience, keep seeking the Lion of Judah.